ones that like football coaches use,
Yeah.
where one side is a microphone and the other side is not, because I work from home with two kids here. So I'm like, I still need to be able to hear them. I got to get one of those.
Same. I want to get one of those, like just the standing mics so that I don't have to hold it. Because I think this is more of like if I'm traveling, then I can just interview people real quick.
I love that. Tech is so cool.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes I remember seeing this meme about it was like just showing a beautiful landscape and like a river and trees, and it's like we made Wi-Fi out of this. Like, yeah, how?
Yeah, it's cool.
Well, good morning again, or afternoon now, depending on what time zone you're in.
Yeah. 11 here. I'm in sunny Arizona. It's beautiful. It's probably like 70 degrees outside.
Beautiful. Oh my gosh, I'm in Houston right now, and
Okay.
the weather has been wild. I throughout like the first month that I was here, it was sunny and it was gorgeous. And I would say, I think like Tuesday, it was even 80 degrees and it was like a really cool, chill 80. And I was walking around enjoying it. And then the next day it was 20 degrees max. And I was like, what is this insane 20-degree difference? That's
That's
crazy.
huge. That's crazy. Wow. That is crazy. We don't have that drastic here.
Yeah, that's insane. Have you, did you move to Arizona? Did you move for sub two or have you always been there?
I've actually always been here. Well, sort of. I was originally born in Mexico, but I've lived here since I was 5. So I've lived here for 30 years. So pretty much a native. And I think my husband and I are, and he kind of the same thing. He moved here when he was 5. We've both lived here ever since. I think we're both ready for a change. So the plan is next year to move to Colorado.
Wow. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, why Colorado?
So we kind of just both were ready for a change. We love Arizona. It's a beautiful desert, but we just want to live somewhere greener, somewhere prettier, or different kind of pretty, you know.
Mhm.
And my top choice was actually North Carolina. I just think it's so beautiful there, and it's so close to all the East Coast things that you can do
Yeah.
there. And we were also looking at this house in Utah that we really loved, and it happens to be 2 doors down from my brother. And it just didn't work trying to work out a deal with the sellers. And we had always both loved Colorado, but in our head, I'm like, we both just had this idea like Colorado's way too expensive. We can't afford to move to Colorado. And then I had these clients who were wholesaling a property in Colorado, and I'm like, "Hun, this is literally almost the exact same price as the house we were looking at in Utah." And it's way
Wow.
closer. Like we've always loved Colorado. It's way closer than North Carolina because both of our families are either here or Utah. I'm like, why don't we just buy this house in Colorado? And within an hour, we'd signed an assignment agreement. I said to my clients, I was like, hey, can you send me more details on that Colorado house? He's like, are you interested in it? I'm like, yeah, we might want to buy it for ourselves. And he's like, we have like 10 people in line, but we will put you to the front of the line because you're our transaction coordinator. Obviously, we'll know you'll perform. You're not going to like ghost us on the day of closing because unfortunately, we went through that with several of their properties.
Ugh.
And I was like, okay, can you guys give me like an hour just so we can like sit down and make this choice? And we closed on it in October. It took a while to rent it out. Apparently, like we've always lived in Arizona, so to us, I'm like, this is a great time to be moving, right? But in Denver, everything. I mean, I wouldn't say it shuts down, but just the rental market. Once it starts snowing and once it gets cold, it's so hard to find tenants. Apparently, so
Yeah.
it took like
Nobody
4
wants to move.
yeah, it took like 4 months to find tenants, and we were going to move there this summer. And right around the time we closed on the property, I got pregnant.
Ah,
So we were like, the idea was we're going to wait 6 months, rent it out. And during that time, my husband, who's an attorney, was going to like transfer his bar license and do all those things because it's a pretty lengthy process.
mhm.
And I'm due the month we would have been moving out there. I'm like, we're not going to do that.
Oh my gosh.
Not with, we already have 4 kids. I run a full-time business. Trying to move and have a baby the same month it's just not going to happen. So we rented out for a year instead. So we'll be
Yes.
moving there in February, hopefully.
Oh my gosh.
So
Next February. That's crazy.
yeah,
Congratulations.
thank you. So house and baby this year.
Wow. That's a pretty big decision to make in an hour. Do you think is that how you normally are? You're because I would say that's relatively quick. Not necessarily impulsive, but um I was reading Think and Grow Rich not too long ago, and that was one thing that they had mentioned, make decisions quickly and then change them
Judgment
slowly.
slowly. Good book. Yeah, you know what? I'm kind of funny because I joke that I could decide to move to China tomorrow, but don't put a food menu in front of me. Like
It's
I can make
funny.
big decisions quickly, but like what ice cream flavor do I want? I'm like, I don't know. I'm having a panic attack. I don't know what kind of ice cream I want.
This is
Can I
really important. I
all
can't
the
mess
ice
this up.
creams? Yeah, just spray me a little of everything. So something like that for me, it's not uncommon for me to be able to make a big decision quickly, but it's the little ones. It makes zero sense.
Interesting. Yeah, I wonder why that is. Like, I really want to get into the psychology of that someday, because
Yeah,
that's
that would be so
sometimes I would think that it's because of the array of options, and the more options there are, the more like choice anxiety you can get. But
that's true.
there's yeah, but same thing with moving. Like, there's plenty of states. So I'm like, well, that's interesting. Oh, and I this might transition more into more of your discussion, but um was that kind of the case when you retired, I guess, from being a teacher?
No, so that decision came more out of, I mean, I don't know how to if there's a term for it, but my husband had just graduated law school. He in October, or I guess he passed the bar in October. He got a job in February, and that one was really hard for him. I was still teaching full time. I was pregnant, of course, again. I'm like, I'm always pregnant. It's like the joke. Um, and he took a job that was 2 hours away, and it was like in the town right by where he grew up. His parents still live there. So I stayed behind, and he would just come home on the weekends. And so when my school year was over, I was going to have a baby the next month
Mhm.
and move.
Okay.
So we moved. I mean, I had to quit that job out of necessity to follow my husband to his job. And then we just kept moving and moving and moving. We moved like 9 times in 6 years. So it was crazy, and all for like, his job and whatnot. So we got really used to moving a lot. In fact, when we'd been at our current house right now for 2 years, I think we both started to get like this itch, like we've been here for too long. And that's part of what spurred this conversation. Like, let's move to another state. Let's just do something drastic, like move
Mhm.
to North Carolina. Um, and again, there's the big decision that we're like, let's go. But like, don't give us a rug to choose, because we'll fight over that for hours.
Only the important things we argue about, like
Yeah,
rugs.
exactly. Only the important things, like what rug we're gonna have, or where is this bookcase gonna go.
Oh my goodness, that's funny. And so going back to how you were saying how you bought this new house out in Colorado, you said that it was some of your clients that are wholesalers. So
Mhm.
can you walk me through like what a TC does? What is a TC?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. So, a TC stands for transaction coordinator, if somebody's new to that term. And what we do is we're basically,
oh, by the way, your camera is it? Oh, and she's gone. She'll come back. Don't worry. In the meantime, because this is still recording and I don't know if I'll edit it, look at these pretty lights. Whee! I love them. I painted that right there.
am I back? I was so
Oh, she's back.
I just disappeared. I'm moving my internet. That's so random. Okay, sorry about that.
You're good.
So we wear kind of several different hats. In one regard, we're like a diplomat. We are there to keep everybody happy, to keep everybody compliant, so that we can keep the deal going.
Mhm.
We're when people are upset and they feel like they're not getting what is on the contract, what everything what was agreed to, they
Yeah.
stop signing things. The deal stops moving, and unfortunately, we've seen that a lot. Um,
Mhm.
so one of the hats we wear is to be a diplomat. So the one of another thing that I kind of hinted at is we just keep the transaction going. When you have an investor who's brand new, especially to a subject to transaction, creative financing, they don't know what to look for. They wouldn't know if something is missing because they've never done this kind of transaction before. It's very different than traditional real estate. So we are very familiar with the paperwork, everything that needs to be there for a creative or subject to transaction that's not there on a regular
Yeah.
transaction, on a traditional sale. So that's the big part of what we do. We are making sure the paperwork is there, it's being done correctly. Um, for I Of course, I'm a little biased, but I think everybody should use a TC. If you're new, it's about having the confidence about the process, about the paperwork, that it's being done correctly.
Mhm.
If you are trying to scale your business, you have a big team, you're very busy. Maybe it's just the fact that you have a W 2 and you don't have time during your day job to talk to a title company all day or to talk to your sellers because you're at work. That's another, you're winning back your time. You're able to focus on either your W 2, or if you're scaling, you can focus on making more calls, on getting more contracts, on talking
Mhm.
to more sellers instead of, oh, I have to talk to title companies and I have to answer 20 emails a day for this transaction. Let us do that for you. So you're winning back your time and you have that confidence, just depending on where in the spectrum you are in terms
Mhm.
of your experience. And a big part of what we do is also just problem solving with these creative contracts. We sometimes joke that each one is just like a dumpster fire waiting to happen. They get so dramatic. People get unhappy. There's like undisclosed liens. Are they going to be taken subject to? Can they be taken subject to?
Mhm.
Knowing how to explain that to your sellers, to the title companies. We do a lot of problem solving. So I hope that kind of answer. I know it's like kind of a long-winded response, but I hope that answers your question on what does a transaction coordinator do.
No, I think so. I could be a little biased since I am in the field, but you handle all the paperwork when it comes to uh, a transaction. So when a house is in escrow and it's closing and such, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. So, and I kind of skipped over this. I feel like maybe I should have had we'll go back. Would you like to introduce yourself? And I know that I kind of mentioned that you were a math teacher
Mhm.
before, or that you were a teacher before, but you were a math teacher, and I'm like,
Yes.
go ahead.
Yeah, I did. I used to be a math coach or a math teacher. I'm sorry. And then I was a health coach for a while. And then I actually refinished furniture for a while. And like I said, we moved a lot. And two of the houses that we purchased, whenever we would move, we left them as rentals because in my head, I'm like, this is a great way to save for retirement.
Mhm.
My husband doesn't love to save. I'm like one of those people that's like very conscious about that. I was also a personal finance teacher, so I'm like, we should be saving for retirement. So in my head, I'm like, we are not selling this house. We're going to leave as a rental. We need a retirement egg since you don't like to contribute to your 401k, which I now know are trash anyway. But
Uh-huh.
that's what I knew at the time. And then it was like, this is so cool. We just get money every month and we don't have to do anything.
Hmm.
Like we're not working for that money. It's so cool. How do we do this again? And we're like, okay, well, we're gonna save up for houses. He was okay with saving for that, and we'll buy a new one every 5 years. That's how long it's gonna take to save up for another house. And then I just on Facebook ads somewhere, I saw I started getting all this stuff about real estate, like go
Mm,
join this webinar, go to this master class. And there was one that I really enjoyed. It was called RAIN. It's like the Women's Real Estate Investment Network. Her name is Tessa, something like that.
mm,
Um, it was really good, and I started to learn more and more about these mentors, and I eventually found my way to PACE and the sub 2 community. I joined the sub 2 community, and I'm a very outgoing, very people person. I love talking to people. So naturally I thought I was going to do cold calling and, direct to seller, direct to agent type thing. And I was doing that. I actually started with direct to agent because there's no startup cost. You just need a
mhm,
phone basically, and a Google Doc, or Google Sheets. And I was calling them and I was calling them, and it was going well, except in the back of my mind, it was, what happens when they say yes?
mm,
There's so much training on how to call, how to overcome the objections, all of that, but nobody ever talks about the escrow process.
mhm,
What How do you even open escrow? How do you know what title company to use? How do you know what paperwork is supposed to be there? I've only ever bought houses traditionally for myself, not taking over someone's loan. Like, I know
mhm,
they're not going to be a lender, but that's all I know. And it's like I mentioned before, if you've never done it before, you don't know what to look for.
mhm,
And I was asking, and people were always just saying, well, you just get a transaction coordinator and they do it for you. I'm like, okay, but what does a transaction coordinator do? That was like my math brain, like very logical. I need all the details.
yeah,
I need this, 1 + 2 = 3. This document plus this document equals a deed.
yep,
And I started to look more and more into the paperwork side of things. And I remember going through that Avatar series that Pace has of like, where do you fit in to real estate? And when I first watched that, I'm like, transaction coordinating paperwork, that sounds boring. And here I am now. That's how I ended up in a TC. I'm like, you know what? I think I could actually really like this. Um, I, and just it at the time, it just really fit my lifestyle better. I do have
mm,
2 little toddlers at home, and it was very hard to find the time to cold call. If there's any moms listening or parents out there, the second you get on the phone, your kids just go crazy. They start climbing on everything. They get so loud. They need everything from you. And the second you're off the phone, they're like, we don't care about you anymore. So it was just so hard to find time to do those cold calls when you're trying to watch your kids all day. I'm like, but TCing, I'm on the computer. I can just stop and
mm,
walk away from my laptop whenever. And it just made more sense. And I ended up loving it. And at this point, I've done probably 300 transactions or so. Yeah. So, and most of which have been creative, sub 2, seller finance type, some cash as well, but for the most part, the sub 2 stuff.
wow,
Here I
that's a
am
lot.
now.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a pretty good number. So you're pretty
Yeah.
experienced. And how long have you been a TC for? Oh, she's gone. Okay. We'll bring her back. Woo. I will be editing it. And she's back.
I don't know why it hates me. Oh my gosh. And my background is gone. I started training last January. So
Oh,
just over a year. And a
wow.
lot of those 300 transactions were just in a very short range. It took, when you're starting a new business, it does take a while to get started.
Mhm,
There was the first few months where I'd have maybe 1 or 2, 3 transactions, and I kept just like doubling and doubling and doubling to the point where I just had way too many. I'm like, I have like 27 transactions. I am going crazy. My kids are destroying my house. I haven't seen my kids in 2 hours, but they're somewhere in the house. My husband's ready to leave me. He's like, "I don't even know who you are. I never see you." And that was when I was like, "Okay, I need help. I need a virtual assistant or I need team." I'm like, "I can't keep this up
Mhm.
long term." And I joined up with a couple other business partners and started TC Deal Pros, which was on here before. And now we've got me and 4 other TCs full time and a virtual assistant. So
Wow.
it's really grown. And that was we officially started that in September.
Ooh,
So,
very nice.
yeah, very end of September. And here we are.
And that's I want to ask about lead generation. I know that you were saying, you did a couple because it was slow at first, but then it kept growing. Was it repeat customers, or were you just really good at marketing, or were you getting a lot of referrals? Where did that come from?
So at the beginning, when I was trying to find clients, I would spend a lot of time in the Zooms within the Sub2 community.
Mm,
And I would just, hey, they would say, I'm new, I'm looking, I was like, hey, I'm a TC. I'd love to just reach out to you. Or even not even say anything about being a TC, but just like, hey, I'd love to set up a call and networks. Like I said, I love talking to people. I love meeting new people. So I was just on phone calls every day, maybe 4 or 5 every single day is what I would try to get, just networking calls. And a lot of those people I never even ended up TCing for, but I just kind of got my name out there to the point where
mhm.
everybody knew I was a TC, even if I wasn't their TC.
Nice.
And then I did start to get some repeat clients, and then they would, refer me to other people, or they would make posts and tag me as their TC for that deal, and they kind of just escalated from there. And as a TC, if you're not planning on having a team, which is totally fine, sometimes that's not part of your plan. Um, you really just need even 2 clients that are each doing a handful of deals every
Mhm.
month, and that's enough business to keep you more than busy.
Yeah. Yeah, and like once you TC for one person, they'll probably come back to you, because as long as they know that you do a good job and that they don't really have to do anything,
Yeah.
it's interesting because I know that I'm definitely not a TC. I know I will not like all that paperwork. It's gonna stress me out.
Yeah.
So I know that, like, I would just go to one person and I was like, all right, that's it. Like, I'm not necessarily saying like you are my TC, but we kind of know I don't really want to change. I just want things to be simple.
Yeah. Absolutely. And as a TC, or as a TC company, I should say, we have those clients where they have a regular job. So they might do one, maybe 2 transactions a month, or
Mm,
maybe you only see them once every 2 months. And then we also have a few teams where it's like we have 10 to 15 from that team every single month. So, we kind of get all of that. There's those investors that just live and breathe this stuff all day.
that's awesome. You
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. And there's some pros and cons to that. The pros is they tend to be more responsive. They're obviously going to bring you a lot more repeated business. I think the only downside is that sometimes they have a hard time remembering that you need to have some work life balance, because they live and breathe this all
Yeah.
day. So they're wanting to text you at 5 a.m. or like it's 10 p.m. Hey, can you send this out? And there's times when like this is very time sensitive. It does need to go out tonight. And other times I'm like, hey, I'll send it out in the morning.
Yep. Absolutely.
So
That's really funny. That kind of goes into like just, I think, entrepreneurship in general ish, like how it's interesting how different it is from like a W-2 or 9 to 5. I was talking with one of my partners about this the other day, but we were discussing how easy it was when she, or I guess when both of us worked prior to being in real estate, because I was a waitress, or I would work at Olive Garden or Baskin Robbins, and those are, you don't take the work home. There's no way to do that. I mean, you're literally just serving food, and then once you're done with your shift, then you're done.
You're
And it's
done.
interesting, yeah. Now it's interesting to understand, and now I understand my mom more, because my mom is her own. She has a small business as well, and a nonprofit. And before I unfortunately would get a little upset with her, because I would feel like, she's not really present with me when we would be together, and I'd be talking, and then she would kind of drift off into space, or she would start talking about an idea that she had, and I would just, mom, like, come on, stay on
You're back to
topic.
me now.
And now that's me. Now sometimes I'm in meetings, or sometimes as I'm falling asleep, I start thinking about, oh, I need to do this, or oh, I can revise this and make this better as long as I
All
do
the
this.
time.
Oh my gosh.
You're
Live
like,
on
I'm
dream.
turning it to my mom.
The more I age, the more I turn into my mom.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's like
that's
those, what is it, like Progressive, those commercials, like how not to turn into your parents or something like that.
oh my gosh. Those are my favorite. I think the other day I was watching one, and she had to like throw away a Rolodex or something. Nobody uses that anymore.
Yeah, it's funny how those commercials stick with us. Like um that that Super Bowl commercial with like Arnold Schwarzenegger as the State Farm when he
Mhm.
says like a good neighbor. And like a couple of days ago, my kid was reading a Tiger Daniel. It's like this little kid. It's based off of like Mr. Rogers. It's called Tiny Daniel's Neighborhood. And she spelled out neighbor. She's like, Mom, what does this spell? And I said, neighbor. I'm like, that's so random. She's like, what?
She doesn't get
No, she doesn't get it.
it. That's so funny. So, what made you, or I guess, so would you kind of say that TC is still in like the entrepreneurial space? Because I would. I mean, I think you create your
Yeah.
own hours and such, right? So, how is that different? Or did you ever feel like you were going to go into this space growing up? Because being a teacher is definitely different than doing what we do now.
Yeah. I mean, until I got into real estate and started trying to cold call and all that stuff, I never even heard of a transaction coordinator.
Mhm.
So it definitely, just that analytical brain that I have, and the like math, wanting little checks and lists, definitely just fits how my brain works. But now having like a full blown business and 4 TCs on my team has also allowed me to go back to my teaching role, because I'm training the new TCs how to be TCs. So, it's allowed me to also go back to that, to my teaching roots,
Mm.
which I've really enjoyed. They're a lot better behaved than my junior high kids. So, but we have a good time together. We work, we do a lot, we get a lot done. But we're in an all day virtual Zoom like this, so it's
Oh.
very helpful to them, because they can come to me live in
Mhm.
real time to ask me those questions, because they're all absolutely new. Well, except for one. The 3 new TCs are completely new to real estate, to transaction coordination. So I'm just there, standing over their shoulder, per se, to tell them what to do next. Like every morning we have a team huddle. Okay, this transaction, here's your list of things to do. This transaction, here's your list to do for today.
Mm.
And just kind of, okay, this is how you're going to word this. And they're like, oh my gosh, my seller's freaking out. This is what they're saying, or this is what they're asking. How do I answer it? And I'm right there, except for when I'm at things like this. So,
Mm.
yeah.
Whoops. Sorry for taking you out of that.
No, not at all. I enjoy this very much. And I'm just like, hey, I've got my podcast in 20 minutes. What questions do you need? So, it's very normal. They're used to it by now.
I'm glad that you can. I feel like if you're a teacher, or if you, like, sometimes you don't have to be, your occupation doesn't have to be a teacher. to be a teacher. So I
Yeah.
like you, and there's one of my teammates. He's our closer. His name's TJ. He was also a teacher, and I believe he taught robotics back
Oh,
in the day, and now he's not, and he's you know pretty much doing real estate full time, but he loves going back into his teaching and being able to be helpful. And he often has like office hours for people to come to and ask him questions. And he definitely gets a sense of like fulfillment from it. It's interesting to
absolutely.
see.
Like when you've been out of it for a while, and especially because they're choosing to be there, it's like a high for us. Like, oh, I got to teach them this, and they were so excited, and they ask all these questions. And whereas, like that's not always the case when you're dealing with like junior high kids or high school. Maybe for him it was because it's robotics. That's an
Mhm.
elective class. They all wanted to be there. So many people are like, oh, I hate math. So
Yeah. How
it's
did you get from the math field to the personal finance? Not just, I guess your desire and your maybe not desire, your interest kind of shifting. I'm assuming was it something where there was just a personal finance kind of position that opened up in the school and you're like, "Oh, I can fill it," or
Yeah, so I taught 7th grade math for 5 years, and that very last year, I was going through divorce, so I had to take on extra teaching jobs. I worked for an online school, and their opening was, for Algebra 2, which was, to high school level, and then personal finance, and I'm like, "Yeah, I'll take that. That sounds great." And then I decided to move up. I was also working on my master's in math education. And when I finished that, I decided to move to the high school level. And it just so happened that the high school that I really wanted to teach at had a position that was Algebra 2 and personal finance. I'm like, I've just
oh,
been teaching this online for the last year, so it's perfect. So it just kind of worked out that I had already had a little bit of experience with both of those subjects, and that was the school I wanted to be at, and that was the job opening. And it's kind of funny. Last week, I was talking to one of my clients. He's, our biggest client. He's like a little brother to me. I just love him. And like we knew that he was quite a bit younger than me, but we were talking about it, and it turns out that like when I was teaching algebra 2, he was taking that same class like at our rival high school.
ah,
So, so I probably taught like some of his friends that he had at the high school because he lived like it was in the same city. He was on the swim team. He knew the swim coach at my school, and it was like, oh my gosh, this is so weird. I'm like REI BFFs with what would have been my student at the time.
that's crazy. Oh my
It's
god.
so crazy. It made me feel so old. So
Well, you
just
don't look it. I don't know how old you are, so I always just kind of resort to, you look 21. I think you're 21.
you definitely look like you're 2021.
Ah,
No,
flip it that
I'm
way.
35. So
Oh, wow. Okay.
yeah, I've
I
got some years. I could be your mom. High school, one of those teen moms.
I think I'm
S
23, so it'd be like a junior high thing. Probably not.
It could happen. Here's a funny story about that. When I was teaching junior high, I had this kid, named Zachariah, and I love him. He was so funny, but he was like, the class clown. He struggled at math, and it, showed up in his behavior. And I just remember seeing his last name, and I'm like, and I was teaching at the junior high that I attended as a junior high student. And I'm like, oh, that's just like Brittany. She came here. She has the same last name. I wonder if they're related somehow. And I never really thought about it too much until the point where like his behavior was just getting out of hand. I'm like, okay, I need to talk to his mom. And then I looked, and his mom was that friend I had in junior high who was pregnant when we were in junior high. And here's that baby. And I'm his teacher.
Wow.
I'm like, this is so weird. So when I talked to her, I was like, hey, do you remember me from junior high? It so weird.
That is crazy. I don't remember anybody from my junior high being pregnant, but I remember a couple high school or a couple of the girls from high school were pregnant. One of them had twins. That was crazy. So to think about, like, oh my gosh, that's weird.
So weird.
Whoa.
It's really weird at the age that I'm at, like late 30s, because you have friends who have kids who are like about to go to college because they had them really young. And
Yeah.
then you also have friends that are like pregnant with their first kid, but they're the same age. And it's just, it's so weird. It's a
Wow. It's
weird
insane.
age, friend and baby wise, you know?
Mm. Yeah, I remember growing up and I knew that my parents had me when they were like 21, 22, so it wasn't like super young. I guess younger now for what the culture
Just
is.
different now. Yeah.
Yeah, but I would like I noticed that they were younger than my friends' parents, and so in my mind, I was always thinking, okay, around like early 20s, that's when I get pregnant. And now that I'm past the age that both of them were when they had me,
You're like,
now I
yeah.
yeah, it's a struggle because I'm like, I cannot have a kid right now. I mean, if I did, I would rise up to the occasion and I'd have a baby. But now I'm starting to think like, okay, well, now my biological clock. So if I have one now or if I have one at like 28, then I'm gonna be this age. And now I'm like, oh my God. And then I start and my mom's like, no, chill out. Like you can have one in your 30s. And I'm like, no, but then there's like a greater chance that's not gonna be well, and then I would feel bad.
Oh, you'll be
Oh, it's a
fine.
mess.
Yeah. Okay, I'm 35 and I'm considered a geriatric pregnancy, okay? Like when
Oh,
you hit 35 or when you hit 35 or 36, you're now considered like geriatric pregnancy. I'm like, should are you gonna get me a walker after I have this baby or what? Like geriatric, that's it's like sounds so old,
I
but
know.
up until like you're 40, you're fine. It's kind of funny. My husband and I were talking about this the other day in the car, and I was like, we've been married for 6 years, and this is our fourth child together. So we've had a lot of babies. That's what I'm like. The joke is that I'm always pregnant. I had our first, like, I got pregnant the week after we got married. Okay.
Oh my
And it just
gosh,
was like,
Perla.
baby's 10 months, I'm pregnant again. This baby's 10 months, I'm pregnant again. This baby's 12 months, I'm pregnant again. And then we had this little break. And this will be our last. But I'm like, can you just imagine? It was so normal, people. I mean, sorry, it was so normal for people before to have 8 to 13 kids back in like the 1800s.
Yep.
So normal. I'm like, they used to get married at like 15. And I'm
Wow.
like, and you're very fertile. I mean, unless you have fertility problems, obviously, until you're like 40. I'm like, that's 25 years where you could just keep popping them out. I'm like, can you imagine us? I'm like, you look at me and I'm pregnant, you know? I mean, imagine if for 25 years I had the opportunity for you to just keep getting me pregnant. I'd have to drive a freaking school bus. It's just insane. Just
Yeah.
mind-blowing to think 25 years of the opportunity to get pregnant.
Yeah, my great grandmother, I believe she had about 16 kids. So that's
Crazy.
16 years of being pregnant. That's insane.
That is it just sounds awful.
Yeah.
Pregnancy is hard. It's hard. I mean, every pregnancy is different. Everybody experiences it different, but it's not easy. And my husband, like, he's so excited for this baby, and he's like, "Do you love being pregnant?" And I always feel bad being like, "Oh, I kind of hate it, but it's just you have to do it. You're not gonna get a baby without being pregnant unless you adopt, obviously." So I'm just like, some days, how do I answer this nicely? Some days I like it. I like when the baby kicks me because you can feel it. And it's just like the weirdest thing, especially when you get later into pregnancy and you can feel it just like stretching and it just like goes across like your whole belly. They're just like, it's so weird and cool. Like it just such an alien feeling that you don't experience other than when you're pregnant, to just feel this human inside of you, you know? Like recently, last weekend, I just go on like all these tangents.
I'm cool with it. I'm listening.
Last weekend we went to this like it's called UFO Experience. It's like a little temporary museum that pops up and here in Scottsdale. And they have all these like fake aliens. And I'm like, that looks like a newborn baby. But giant, you know, newborn baby, like their body is just so disproportional. Like their head is so huge compared to the rest. They're like proportionally so huge compared to the rest of your body. And I'm like, there's a lot of newborns that straight up look like a little alien.
It's so, and then it's also so my partners, they have a toddler. She's 1. I'm gonna
Yeah.
count it as a toddler.
Yeah.
So she's like walking and everything, and then now she's starting to climb. But it's so weird to look at her, and she is a person. She has all the fingers and the legs and the arms and everything. So she's me, but just mini, and it's weird. And I don't know why it looks like it's just weird.
It is. You're like, you're just like a human, but tiny.
How
It's
does that work?
yeah, yeah, sometimes I still am like amazed at like, you're just like me, but tiny. So it's so weird to me. Almost 5 kids later, you know.
Speaking of that, and then going back to your teaching, so because you were teaching personal finance, have you started to implement that with your kids now, teaching them that, or I guess at an earlier age, or is that something that you think more older, like high school kids would grasp more?
I definitely don't think we need to wait till high school. I would definitely say like junior high. I am a fan of like giving kids responsibilities and they are given an allowance. Part of that was just out of necessity with 4 kids, like there's like an absurd amount of laundry at my house. If you know anything about like toddler girls, they love to change their outfits 3 or 4 times a day, which with 4 kids, it's astronomical amount of laundry. And especially when my business is really growing, I'm like, I just cannot handle doing this much laundry. Like, I just can't. I'm like, I cannot spend 4 hours to do this laundry. So I pay my 2 older girls to do their laundry and their younger sister's laundry. They get $5 a week. And I'm like, that is so worth $40 a month, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Anytime, yeah, to spend like, it literally will take me 4 hours to do it every month or every week. So I'm like 16 hours for $4 sold for $40, you know? Um, so I definitely do that. So just I'm a big fan of like teaching kids responsibilities. They have chores to do around the house. I know it's not always going to be perfect. And I remember growing up, I would make my bed and it wasn't perfect. And I'd come home and my mom would fix it. And I'm like, well, I could just do it not great because my mom's going to fix it anyway. And I'm like, it's so hard to teach that to your kids. Like, I don't fix it. I will have them go back and fix it, but I don't want them to learn to just do a sloppy job because mom's going to go back and fix their mistake. Like, it's so hard as a parent to not step in and fix and just let them make mistakes and learn from them and let them stumble. It's incredibly hard because we're like,
Mhm.
I just want to show you how to do it right. But we also know that's not how they're going to learn from their mistakes. So I do teach them that. I mean, they have a small allowance. They do have like little chores or responsibilities that they do around the house. I think more of other aspects of personal finance will definitely come when they're more in like junior high. They have more of a concept of money. I mean, I have a 2, 4, 5-year-old who have no concept of money, you know, and then I have an 8-year-old who's kind of starting to get things here and there. So,
That's
but as
cool.
they grow, that is something, a conversation that my husband and I have had is that we didn't have financial literacy growing up. That was not
Mhm.
something that was taught explicitly in either of our households, and that's definitely something that we want to instill in our kids is that financial sense. And I'm like, that's the difference between you know, a lot of generational wealth. It's not just about leaving your kids a house or a bank account. It's about the financial literacy so that they can be successful later in life. They know about investments, they know about good debt versus bad debt. They know about real estate and how to make generational wealth for their, family someday.
Mhm.
And that is something we, and especially like with me, my older girl, I definitely think she would make a great entrepreneur. She definitely doesn't fit that box mold that, like, oh, I'm just going to go to college and get a degree. And she just thinks so outside the box now that she's just meant to be an entrepreneurial someday. And she's like an exact replica of me in every way, for good or for bad. But she's extremely outgoing, just, a little hyper, kind of like me. But for that, but she does kind of struggle in school, and I think that's part of what's wrong with our education system is it just teaches you to follow the rules and color inside the lines. And I I want to instill in her that that's not a bad thing. It's a good thing that you're a social butterfly. Like my networking skills are my superpower, but the
Yep.
whole time I was in school growing up, it was like, "Hey, you're great. You have an A, but you need to shut up and stop
Mhm.
talking," because I'm extremely chatty. I just like talking to people, but that's how I grew my business so fast because I
Mhm.
love talking to people. And my husband says that. He's like, you don't realize if you're an introvert, because he's like extremely introverted, that it makes it very hard to grow a business the way that you have. Like if I had to do what you do, that would be so hard because I hate talking to people. I hate meeting new people. I'm like, I love it. So I definitely don't want to um tamper that in
Mhm.
in her, and encourage my kids to know people's skills. That's not necessarily personal finance, but just a really important skill, especially in real estate. It's who, not how.
Mhm.
So,
Exactly.
and I mean, you shouldn't be expected to know everything, and you don't need to know everything. But when you're partnering with other people, like you've talked about your partners, they have strengths that you don't, and vice versa. And knowing that it's okay that you're going to be good at something, and that's good, and knowing it's okay for you to not be good at everything. Like that's, you need a team. There's no successful large business out there that is a one man or woman shop, you
Yeah.
know.
Absolutely. Have you thought about charter schools or homeschooling or anything, or is that just like that's way too much?
My kids are at a charter school. We're in a really small town. Um and the public school here just has really bad ratings. Like really bad. Um, so we don't take them there, and their charter schools. My younger kid is doing much better. Like she's just thriving, whereas, like I said, my older girl does struggle a little more, and I think it's mostly because she just wants to chat. um, I would love to homeschool my kids. I love the idea of homeschooling, homesteading. I think it sounds so fun. I don't know that I could handle my 2 older kids is the problem. It's like when you're so like when you make a tiny version of yourself, you realize how frustrating you are. Like it has really given me such an appreciation for my mom, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I put my mom through hell." No. I was so rebellious with my mom, like especially in junior high and high school. I might have really excelled in school, but at home we just butted heads a lot, and that's kind of how my 8-year-old is because we're so much alike.
Yeah.
I'm like, so if I could just like pay someone to homeschool her, that would be the best thing ever. I do love just being able to teach more life skills. It's like, why weren't we taught this in school? Well, because
Mhm.
it's not part of the state standards. And a lot of those state standards are, I don't want to say useless, but kind of.
Mm.
They're just, you could teach those same critical thinking skills with something that is going to be more applicable to that child's personality,
Yeah.
to that child's interests. Um, because kids don't all fit the same mold, you know? So,
Yeah, what was interesting is I was kind of reading about this in Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. There was a chapter where they, or a part of a chapter where they had spoken about a couple different things. The main gist was to say, if you view a person one way, that's how you'll treat them, and that's how they're going to treat you, or that's how they're going to result in. Um, and the point of that was there was some like fifth grade class, I guess. And there were notes on which students were like the bright ones and the smart ones, so that, if you wanted to do accelerated or anything, like they would be the ones. But the system had glitched and it made all the bright ones into the ones that were not so bright. And those that weren't getting the grades were marked as bright. And so the teachers had treated them differently, both sides. And so both sides, their grades had reflected how they were being treated. And
wow.
then not only that, when the teachers were asked, how was it, and how was it teaching them, they would say that because they thought that those were the bright kids, according to everything. Because they thought they were the bright kids, when they would teach them a certain subject and they weren't understanding it, they would the teachers would assume, okay, it's something that we're doing incorrectly. We're not teaching it right. So
Yeah.
let's
How
figure
can
out
I
how we're
re-explain it? It's not, oh, this kid's dumb. He's not getting it. It's how can I re-explain it? This kid's smart. Let me just reword it.
Yes,
That's,
exactly.
yeah, that's amazing. Not even surprised by that at all. But
Not at all. Yeah. It's crazy because, well, one, it's just like, wow, the biases all of our brains, and it's not just the teachers. It's something
yeah,
that, like, I've definitely noticed working with the younger people as well. If they have shown me to be a certain way, then I kind of just assume that they are, and then it's difficult to try to give them tasks to not have them prove to me, but have them prove to themselves that they can do these tasks. They're capable of more critical thinking skills. Uh,
yeah,
but yeah, it's interesting. It's crazy.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's so crazy.
Yeah, school and teaching and getting into parenthood is where my brain is at right now. It's
Yeah,
fun. I'm prepping.
for sure.
Um, but yeah, I'm unless if you want to say anything more about how it is being a TC, how it was. Oh, you didn't even mention. So okay, so you went from math teacher, math personal finance teacher, to health coach, to flipping furniture, to real estate.
Yeah. So the reason I went from health coach to furniture is because it was during 2020. I'd had a baby January 2020, and then of course the pandemic happened right during the. And we lived in the middle, a different middle of nowhere, a different small town, and it just like shut down. Like right now, I'm an hour away from Phoenix, so there's always stuff to do within an hour. But there it was pretty isolated and the town just shut down. There's nothing to do. I'm very social. All the mom groups, the play groups stopped meeting. I was having like postpartum anxiety and I was really struggling mentally. My husband, right, literally the week that the shutdowns happened, got a job in Phoenix 3 hours away. So he would live with his grandma during the week, who lived in Phoenix area, and then he would only come up on the weekend. So I was there by myself for a full year with just three toddlers
Oy.
all day, every day. And I was like just really struggling mentally. And I thought, you know what? I just need to do something for myself, something creative, like create something. And I thought, you know what? I used to really enjoy doing crafts and home decor type stuff. Um, and I did. I started to get back into just some home decor craft stuff, and I ended up watching a video by this now friend of mine, Katie Scott, who's an incredible furniture artist. on YouTube, and I was just like obsessed with her YouTube videos. I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to try this. And it was just the creative outlet that I really needed. And then it, gave me a little bit of fun money to play with. And I really enjoyed it for that time that I was doing that. So, yeah.
That's interesting. So I was thinking that would have been more of like a Ryan Pineda situation or some other girls that I see on TikTok where their focus is I need a side money or like I need a side hustle. I need money. What
Hmm.
can I do? Oh, I can buy this furniture piece really cheap and then do it. So I enjoy that yours is different. I enjoy that it started with something, oh, I need some sort of creative outlet or I need some sort of outlet just in general. Oh, this is
Yeah.
cool. And then oh, the byproduct, oh, I get some cash.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that too. But like I had three kids at home, so I did also need some way to make money. Health
Yeah.
coaching wasn't really making me money.
Yeah. So what would you say from all three? Um, so teaching, health coach, and flipping furniture, what has each of them given you that you take now into, I guess, just life in general, where you're at now, and then also in real estate, that whole world?
Yeah, I think for the teaching would probably be just now that I am in this teaching role within my company of teaching the new TCs how to TC. So that one's a little more obvious. And then health coach, I think something people neglect is like their mental health, and being like doing real estate full time is not for the faint of heart. It can get very dramatic, very mentally exhausting, and it can be very draining. You're going to have just all kinds of crazy stuff happen, and you have to understand the importance of your mental health, like working out, doing some yoga, doing some meditation, doing all of that stuff that I didn't grow up with any of that stuff. So it has definitely very much helped me, and especially because I am a mom and wife and business owner, trying to do all of that has been very helpful from those habits that I made when I was a health coach. And then I think the furniture, what really helped me then that I've been able to apply now is probably the marketing. Like I would have to market myself on social media and also market the furniture when I was trying to sell it. I was making like reels and whatnot. I even had a few on Facebook that went viral, had like 500,000 views
Oh my
and
God.
whatnot. So, taking that and the importance of, social media in marketing your company and your website has been very helpful. Not that I'm not marketing my company on social media, but there is an Instagram page that is blank, but it does exist.
There's some sort of presence there.
Yeah, at least it's claimed.
Exactly.
Right now, I just don't have the time. I really just need to hire like a social media manager. And I do have another mom friend who does that. I just need to actually start it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a whole different I don't want to call it a struggle, but choice that I hadn't when I was younger. I would think, oh, if I wanted to do something, let me just do it. And now I have it. I still feel the same way, like, oh, there are things I need to do, let me just do it. But I don't. And I don't because there's, situations that arise, or sometimes I'm just exhausted, like mentally exhausted, where I just cannot handle another thing. But I know that it's going to be helpful, and that's something that I am definitely trying to work through to because I know I want to plan a lot of things, and I'm trying to schedule time to do that. So I know I want to do this. Let me schedule an hour this day, or let me schedule this whole
Mhm.
day where I can really focus and prioritize things. But man, it's difficult.
Yeah, it is
And as a
for
mom,
sure.
I can imagine that it's even more crazy because that I don't have anybody that I rely on. So I don't have I can have a fixed schedule if I need to.
Yeah, yeah, it's hard. And like right now, they're just watching movie. Because when I'm TCing, I've got my whole team there, and they're so used to me just like interrupting in the middle of sentence. Oh, hold on, gotta go. And I'll get up, take them to the bathroom, or get them a snack or whatever, and then I'll come back. But like on a podcast, I'm not just gonna, get up every 5 minutes to go check on my kids. So I'm like, all right, you guys can watch a movie. So they're doing who knows what in my room right now, but that's the only reason they're quiet. I think one of them might have just fallen asleep.
Oh, cute.
Yeah.
So, where can people, if people are looking for TC services, do you service nationwide? Do you service
Yeah. We
what
are
range of?
nationwide. We are nationwide. We haven't done all 50 states, but we're definitely willing to. We do a lot of work in Arizona, Colorado. We've done Idaho, a lot in Texas and Florida, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Ohio, that whole area, Louisiana. So we will do anywhere. We've done Missouri and Arkansas as well, but those tend to be like the ones I've mentioned tend to be where we've done the most. But we will TC anywhere. You could just go to our website, tcdealpros.com. I'm pointing at it as if it's still here, but it's not there. So you just go to tcdealpros.com, and you can submit an order. You could submit your deal. You tell me all about it. If you have a contract, you can upload it. JV agreements, like you can upload everything right on there, and then it'll have you book a call with me. We'll go over your deal. I'll ask any follow-up questions after I've looked over all the details, and then we can take your deal from there. If you need a contract write-up before any of that happens, you could just go to our services tab and you can order a contract right on our website. We have an attorney on our team that will write it for you. We have 24-hour turnaround time, so that's super cool. But yeah, and then when you submit an order, it'll ask you who referred you, and I want you guys to make sure you write Jada. We'll give her a nice referral fee for referring you guys to us. But yeah, just go to our website, tcdealpros.com.
Perfect. It'll be in the descriptions or anything that I post this on.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, thank you, Perla. Do you have any last thoughts before we wrap it up and you can go back to it?
No, I think that's it. I think we're good.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining me. It was really, I really liked meeting you anyways, just in general. And so I'm glad
Yeah.
that we can meet again and chat a little bit more. And I really enjoyed learning more. I like picking people's brains, especially moms, because I'm like, that's going to be me. So
Yeah, it will be. It will be. Whenever that happens.
we'll see. Well,
It might be now, it might be 10 years. It's okay.
I appreciate that too. I appreciate you letting me know, I do have time. It's fine to chill out because I need that reminder sometimes.
Yeah, you do. It'll happen when it's supposed to.
Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed having you on, and I look forward to connecting again sometime.
Yeah, me too. I'd love to.
Yay. All right. Well, you have a great day then.
You too. Thanks, Jada.
Bye.
Bye.